Danny Boyle is back in the horror saddle with 28 years later, where the rage virus has been pushed back to Great Britain, where any survivors have been left to fend for themselves in an infinite quarantine. We follow Spike, who lives in an island community with his parents. Spike takes his ailing mother to the mainland in search of a doctor to help heal her illness. Right off the bat, 28 years later is taking some swings. It starts off with Spike going onto the mainland with his father for the first time. There's a lot of broing going on here. Spike's father wanting him to be a man and get his first kill, to the point that he stretches the truth a little bit when they return, making out Spike to be a bit more of a badass during their trip than he really was. And already in that first sequence, which takes up maybe the first third of the movie, we're already setting some important themes. One that I always find fascinating, and it's always in these apocalypse movies, of course, is when we're seeing the survivor side after a long period of time. Obviously the communities kind of go back in time a little bit because, power being out, no electricity, no internet, etc., etc. But they also go back in mindset a bit, and we see this in Spike's father. It's his father's behavior and secret keeping that drives Spike to sneak away with his mother to the mainland to find Dr. Kelson. From here, the movie changes tone in a really interesting way. So before this part, the movie was quite scary as we are getting back into the world, seeing how the infected have changed. We're introduced to this idea of the Alpha, who is a sort of evolved form of infected. And it's quite scary to see how they've changed, where they now hunt, compared to the first film where it's a bit more chaotic. The attacks are a bit more random. But when Spike sets out on his own, we kind of fall into this very traditional hero's journey. Spike meets other characters, he learns some harsh lessons, and he emerges at the end of the film more confident, which is what his father wanted, just not in the way that Spike did this. I think the biggest challenge while watching this movie was getting a handle on the tonal shifts. There are a lot of heavy themes to contend with, like I mentioned earlier, like how children deal with their parents keeping secrets in the name of quote unquote protecting them. But then we have a whole sequence where Spike meets a Swedish soldier who has been stranded, and through this Spike learns a teensy bit about what the outside world is like compared to what he's only ever known his entire life. And I think this sequence, despite the oddly humorous tone that it falls into, works really well in a post-COVID world. The editing and the storytelling was what was most interesting about this. There are odd, interesting, unique moments. I'll share two examples. First is when Spike and his father first set out to the mainland. And while that's happening, we're hearing that terrifying poem from the trailers as non-diegetic sound. And the pair walking through the forest is spliced with these images of wartime from long ago. It's something you would maybe expect to see in the opening credits, much like the first film, 28 Days Later, but where it happens in the movie is, is past the opening credit point. It's really interesting, and I don't really know kind of why it was used, maybe to make a comparison about how things haven't really changed in this new world, or just to give it some relation to the first movie where they kind of used that technique of splicing imagery like that in the opening credits. It was one of those interesting moments that kind of made you aware that you were watching a movie. The second is when Spike and his mother spend their first night on the mainland after they've snuck out. Spike falls asleep while he's on lookout and has a dream. That's not that weird, but while he's sleeping we see a slow infected slowly crawling towards him, and it's kind of being intercut with his dream, and then all of a sudden he jolts awake suddenly and it's the morning and we see the infected is now dead. Spike wonders how that happened. It jump cuts to his mother killing it in the night, and then it cuts immediately back to them in the morning time with her and her confusion, not remembering what she did, which altogether doesn't sound odd, but it's the way that it was so quickly and harshly edited. It's really harsh jump cuts in the movie, which definitely makes you nervous in the movie. You're constantly on your toes because these things keep getting spliced in this way where it's kind of jolting. I don't really know if I liked it. I think a second watch might help me now that I know to expect it. And because I feel like we have to talk about it, the movie was shot on an iPhone. I can't wait for this to like not be such an advertised thing anymore. It definitely felt like a novelty thing. Like the first time it was done, I understand how it would like feature heavily into advertising, but I feel like at this point it's like it's been done at least enough times now where it's like, okay, I feel like we don't need to like advertise it, because it's like, and maybe it, and that's just a personal thing, I just find it odd to advertise like what a movie is filmed on. It feels gimmicky, like horror movies of like the 40s and the 50s, where it's like watch it in terror vision or something like that, you know what I mean? And I know that's weird for me to like liken that to like shot for IMAX or shot on an iPhone or shot in whatever millimeter film. I think it just inherently feels gimmicky. With how advanced phones are now, it feels like a natural progression to just start doing that. And in any case, especially when it comes to this movie, it feels just like what you would do anyway, because 28 Days Later was predominantly filmed using a small digital camera, which made it feel very found footage or like archival footage. The use of a handheld small camera like a phone in 28 Years Later achieves a similar effect of like realness. Overall, I thought the movie was decent. I enjoyed it, and the bookend story with the movie makes me excited to see the next movie in the planned trilogy. I'm especially excited to see what Nia DaCosta does within this world in that second film, especially with the introduction of Jack O'Connell's character at the end. I feel like it has the potential to be iconic. But in this first movie, I think they did a really good job of setting up some important themes, compelling character in Spike, who has been born into this world, and he's interacting with a lot of adults who remember the time before the apocalypse to some degree. Spike does not, so him trying to like navigate these things and interacting with these adults who oftentimes are keeping the truth from him, whether they think it's for Spike's benefit or they're doing it for their own benefit entirely. And then being set in this world now where the apocalypse has been going on for so long now, it's almost 3 decades into this thing. The way people have survived and maybe now behave on this island after almost 3 decades is interesting as well, and I feel like we're very much going to see that in the second movie. So I can't wait to hear what you guys think about 28 Years Later in the comments. I will see you later this week with a Letterboxd review stream, go over the year so far and maybe do a little stats review. And then after that, next week will be more horror movie reviews with Megan 2.0, I think is the next theater release to come out. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay strange. Bye.